Hi there and welcome to today's video. Today's video will be focusing on self and co-regulation. What that pretty much is the ability to process one's own feelings and emotions, and then by virtue of that, by proxy, the ability to process and handle someone else's distressing feelings and emotions. So let's get right back into it and start the process of unpacking what self-regulation is. Self-regulation is the ability where people manage and process their internal thoughts and feelings, as well as their consequential actions. So what that is sometimes when we have very distressing thoughts and feelings, we can sometimes fall into the irrational actions of doing something as a result of not being able to process them. Effective self-regulation helps one respond and not react to the stressor or stimuli, which pushes you into more of an empowered stance. This is the process of sitting with your feelings, leaning into that discomfort, and the resulting somatic effect. So soma means body, so we'll have a nervous system dysregulation where you'll have the clenched jaw, racing heart, tight chest, tight muscles. So it's important to learn how to sit into it to allow the feeling to pass through the body. Now, the difference with co-regulation is that's a process that's learned from early infancy, where an ability was developed to soothe, manage, and regulate difficult emotions. Now, this process can only occur in a trusting, caring, and responsive relationship with a caregiver. The caregiver needs to be available, reliable, and attentive. Why is this important is because small infants are completely dependent on their parents for their physical and their emotional needs. Now, this process can only happen in an attentive validating, so that means validating will mean a verbal acknowledgement of the child's pain. So this requires a lot of empathy. For example, if a child hurts themselves and the parent can see the child's fine, we have to attune ourselves and go down to the child's level and understand that for them, it's a very scary feeling to feel like something's wrong. And so we have to suspend our logic and try and understand the inner chaotic world of the developing child. Co-regulation allows a person's needs to be acknowledged, attuned to, and then that person feels safe. The little child, the teenager, and then the later adult. And what that happens is somatically with the bodily functions, the nervous system regulates. Then you get a very calm affect. You get a person that has survived the storm. Sometimes it's a storm in a teacup, but it's a storm nonetheless. There is a link between self and co-regulation when caregivers are able to effectively attune to the needs of the distressed infant, and in a consistent, reliable way, the child develops a growing capacity for self-regulation. Co-regulation is also passed down from generation to generation. So if a parent can't self-regulate and they deny their own feelings, they won't be able to regulate you and will deny your feelings as well, and so on and so on. So then you will deny your feelings and not be able to self-regulate. I found this interesting quote from a psychologist, and I'm going to read it. So it says, "When little people are overwhelmed with big emotions, it is our job to share our calm, not join in their chaos. When parents are not adequately prepared due to their own internal struggles, they cannot adequately respond and attune to their child's needs." Now, what happens with that is this results in a lifelong struggle for people to self-regulate, affecting both themselves and other people and all their relationships. Also, as a result, some people either flee from their emotions or their emotions completely collapse them. So a person that, for example, runs from their feelings is someone who could become addicted to certain things, either through process addictions or actual organic addictions. Gambling, over shopping, over exercising, emotional eating, overworking, getting into relationships that are toxic and chaotic, up and down relationships, a push and pull dynamic. So all of those things are a way to run from distressing feelings because they were never taught on how to do that. So now we're going to look at a process of how we can adequately attune and self-regulate very, very distressing emotions. Okay, so the first step is that you're going to notice a very distressing feeling arise. So I want you to do the opposite of what you normally do. The first thing I want you to do is don't deny the feeling. I want you to actually observe it. Observe the feeling and all the discomfort it will present in itself, as well as the somatic feeling, where it sits in the body. Now, what naturally is going to happen is the mind is going to try and jump into this process, and it's going to jump into a narrative that's been formed around this feeling. E.g., I'm not worth love, I'm unlovable, I'm blowing this out of proportion, especially if you came from a family that said that to you growing up, like you're making a big deal out of nothing, dismissing your feelings. I resent myself, etc. I want you to stop yourself in that moment and observe it. Observe when that feeling arises and the resultant cognitive narration that comes in. Because why it's important is that in that moment you're thinking your feelings, you're not feeling your feelings. Research shows us that it takes approximately 90 seconds to process a feeling, not a thought. What happens to us is if we launch into the thought process with the feeling, we then go into a process called rumination, which is a spiral of thinking. And you overthought yourself to such an extent that you've gone into other emotions and you're locked in. And the emotion is locked in the body. So try in this step, it's going to take some time in practice to stop the mind from overthinking and just observe the feeling. Redirect your mind away from these thoughts and into the sensations in your body, the somatic. Mentally name them. So have a look at yourself. Some people will have tension in the jaw, they'll lock the jaw, their tongue will go to the roof of their mouth, they'll have a tight chest, shoulders are tight, lower back, your tummy may feel really sore, and you'll have different sensations when going to the bathroom. Really, really sit with that feeling. Breathe into the feeling and the sensation and allow it. Some psychologists believe, and I'm one of them, that as you feel the feeling, after it starts to process, you need to move the body. So there's this notion in psychotherapy of energy in motion is emotion, because our emotion flows through the body. You need to allow it to move. That's why some people really like yoga, meditation, where you're moving, like in hiking or walking in the environment, is when you feel safe, you need to start moving the body a bit. Or in the moment, cry it out, shake, move, do yoga, connect to the body. Now at this point, your mind will really want to go back into the thought. That rumination. When this happens, redirect your awareness back into your body. Take deep breaths. So breathe in and out into the feeling. Tell yourself it's okay to feel this feeling. Keep feeling into the body. Let the feeling exist and trust that it will leave. Observe it changing, that 90-second rotation, that cycle. Watch it more. Notice that you have survived and that you are safe. So as you have encountered this full 90-second wave where you have survived it, you have gotten through it, you need to give yourself a really big congratulatory celebration, something through that, because you're doing something completely foreign. And as I said in my previous video, the subconscious keeps you safe. And how it does it is it repeats the familiar. And so what we're doing here is pushing past the familiar into uncharted territories. And that's what a lot of psychotherapy is about, is pushing you beyond something that you know and that's familiar, and the subconscious thinks it's safe, but it's not necessarily good for you. You're going to feel an immediate release after this. Some people find that after crying for a long time, they feel very drained, but a day or two later, they'll feel quite relieved. It depends on how much you've stored in the body and in the mind through all of this. So well done on that, and think about this in terms of trying to process your feelings and how you can help other people. I've decided not to, in this video, go into how to co-regulate yet, as it's a longer topic, and I wanted to go into, you need to be ready to co-regulate, as in we spoke about in childhood, that a parent has to have the necessary skills, tools, and availability to be able to co-regulate their child. But it's the same in adulthood, is if a friend phones you and tells you, I I really need to brain dump or tell you something, you can't just give it to them if you're not available. You can't be available. So I'm going to explain in the next video on Monday on how to effectively start co-regulating better, but also within boundaries. As in, you have to honor your own self. Because if you're not available for that person, you may build a bit of resentment towards them that you've given so much of yourself when you're not available. And it's not good for them as well. If your nervous system is not regulated and they're not ready to, or won't be able to receive how you're trying to co-regulate, is we have to work through that process. So I'll see you all on Monday and we'll work through co-regulation.